Hey everybody, welcome to your horoscopes for the week. These are the horoscopes for the week ending May 20th. I know I say it every single week. It's kind of crazy. It is. We are officially almost halfway through the year already, and it's been going by really, really quick. Although there's a lot of stuff going on too. I'm sure for a lot of people, at least over here on this end, there's been a lot of things and changes and just, things to maneuver around. So that probably helps with it feeling like it's speeding by a little bit. We're officially in at the end of the Mercury retrograde this week. We are going to kick off the week still in retrograde by the end of Sunday. It's over into Monday. Mercury moves direct again. We are still in a shadow period this week, but hopefully its effects will be a little less difficult. If difficult it has been for you, actually. This has been a very good, pardon me, in many ways, Mercury retrograde as changes, sometimes things have to get really, really, really bad in order for you to initiate change. And I feel that this Mercury retrograde has really done that for a lot of people, specifically over here. It definitely had its hand in making improvements where improvements need to be made. So I am grateful for the Mercury retrograde this time for sure. We do have some difficulties, some pretty big challenges. Three of the signs are going to be directly, I should say, four of the signs really going to be directly involved in this pretty big challenge. By the end of the week, we're going to pull a fifth one into that as well. And on a technicality, all three planets are on cusp. So we're looking at six signs, half the zodiac really being affected by this major challenge. But we have a lot of good stuff going on too. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. We're going to get started as we always do with Aries. And yes, you guys are going to be feeling the challenge for sure in terms of this T-square that Jupiter is creating with Mars as well as Pluto. And Mercury is going to play into this a little bit as well, because Mercury is not quite in conjunction with Pluto. I'm sorry, with Jupiter, but close enough to be part of this challenge towards the end of the week, and in some cases a little bit at the beginning of the week as well. Mercury is definitely closer to Jupiter at the beginning of the week as that retrograde ends. Still not quite in a cusp though, but very, very close. The two could be working together in a way that is beneficial for you, but also working together in this challenge as well. So focus is on long-term goals, specifically long-term career goals. We have Jupiter at 29 degrees at the beginning of the week. By the end of the week, he's 0 degrees Taurus. So he has officially moved on to another sign. However, being on the cusp of the two signs, you're still going to feel the effects of this. So, and this challenge does not look like it's going anywhere anytime soon. So you probably will be feeling of the effects of it this week into next week. Hopefully by the week after that, once we're into June, things will sort of calm down for you guys, at least. Mercury is not quite on the cusp, but you still feel the effects of it, of course, as it also plays into this challenge. So with your focus on long-term career goals, Mars continues to be focused on inner trauma. And we also have Pluto, which is retrograde and focused on your day-to-day schedule. So there's a couple of things actually that I see playing out in this challenge for you guys. The first thing being that it is difficult to move forward in your career goals while you're being triggered by past situations that may mimic what's going on in terms of your career growth. And with your day-to-day schedule being specifically affected, This has a lot to do with reschedules, with dealing with individuals who don't have the same work ethic as you. So it seems like they're either always late or they're doing things to waste your time. This can be really challenging. And when you're in the process of trying to move forward in your career goals, this sort of plays out as a test to kind of sort of see how professionally you can deal with these specific changes. And if you're being triggered, obviously you have to work really hard to make sure that your emotions are not driving this bus right now, because obviously that's not going to be good in terms of your career goals. And you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot when you are so close to getting what you want. So a little extra patience goes a long way with this challenge. And I feel like for you, Aries, specifically, that extra patience lesson is very important, because you Rams move at the speed of lightning. You're the babies of the zodiac. Doesn't matter how old you are, Aries always maintains this energy that most other people can't seem to touch for whatever reason. So patience is a very difficult lesson for Rams for that reason. You want to do it, move on to the next thing, and you want to keep progressing as quickly as possible. This isn't saying that you want to progress so quickly that you're missing things, but you want to make sure that you're not missing things either. As we get into Wednesday, right in the middle of the week, the moon moves in to your sign, moves into this challenge, makes it a much bigger challenge. This is definitely the peak of the challenge this week for you guys, when the emotions are right there on the surface. So do whatever you need to do. Walk away, count to 10, work through your triggers. Put the trigger on the back burner. You always can put the feelings of the trigger on the back burner for a time. You just want to make sure that you go back to it and work through it later, so it doesn't come back to bite you in the behind later. But specifically around anything professional, you want to maintain a professional attitude as much as possible, even if the person has it coming. Okay, take them around back after work and deal with it in your old way if you need to. Actually, don't do that. Okay, I don't need anybody getting fired and coming back and saying, hey, you told me to beat them up. Okay, obviously you know that that's not the way that professionally we deal with things, right? But it's not to say that your nasty streak can't work with this in an entertaining way in some way, if that makes sense. Did I say nasty? I meant naughty. So you guys are the tricksters, and you know that you are. So have fun with it. You know how to have fun with it and still maintain a professional professionalism, okay, for lack of a better word. So that's what I have for you guys. If you love your horoscopes, do click the link in the bottom of the description of this video and send me a coffee. I would greatly appreciate it. And we are going to move on to Taurus, where all the action continues to be, although this is the last week of Taurus season before we move into Gemini season starting next week. So we have the sun ending the week with the sun at 29 degrees Taurus. That means that the following week he's bumping on over to Gemini. And we do have a new moon in Taurus, actually right on the cusp of Taurus and Gemini, actually. Interesting thing that is taking place this year, and that is that all the new moons are on cusps all the way up. I think this is actually the last month where the new moon is on a cusp. So every single new moon we've had so far has been influenced by two different signs. And this one in particular is a Taurus Gemini new moon. So you've got the brilliance of Gemini along with the determination of Taurus. Could be big for you guys, actually, this month in terms of your career goals, and specifically allowing the ability to manifest some of those goals into a reality rather than sitting around and thinking about it. Maybe even going into that place where you're coming up with excuses as to why you can't do it. This is an opportunity to take some of those ideas and actually do something amazing with them. You never know. It could be like the best idea you ever had. And you don't know until you try, right? We also have Jupiter moving into Taurus this week, 0 degrees officially in Taurus. We have the moon coming in on Wednesday as Jupiter is moving into Taurus, and Jupiter is coming into your sign in a T-square with Mars and Pluto. So the moon, of course, is going to join that whole aspect on Wednesday. Mercury also plays a part in this aspect too, as Mercury's retrograde ends in your sign right at the beginning of the week, and we move into a nice direct Mercury motion on Monday through the rest of the week. So you guys, we did it. We made it through another Mercury retrograde, although I have to say that this one did have a lot of benefits. And it had difficulties, but it did have a lot of benefits as well. So, but we got a lot of things going on this week, basically, with the moon moving into this, with Mercury's retrograde ending, with Jupiter moving into your sign. We continue to have Uranus in your sign as well. Uranus is really actually helping things out, being in a grand sextile with Pluto and Neptune, continuing to be in this grand sextile with Pluto and Neptune. And because Pluto is part of this big challenge, this sort of adds a layer of help to understanding the lesson or understanding the challenge. Specifically, as Uranus's focus is on career, Pluto's focus is on your day-to-day schedule, and we have Neptune's focus being solely on money. So this really is all about your career goals. It's about your financial goals. It's about putting things together to ensure that you have your finances in order. And there's a lot of really good energy going towards that. However, with this pretty big challenge here, we've got this T-square, and specifically on Wednesday, it's the moon and Jupiter and Mercury all moving in together with each other and moving into this T-square that we have going on with Mars and Pluto. And in case you haven't been paying attention for the last several months, Mars still is focused on inner trauma. We are still pulling this inner anger out of ourselves. And for good reason. It just can't stay in there anymore. Either it's destroying you physically, it's providing too many excuses as to why you're not moving forward in your goals. It's continuously triggering you and making your life simply miserable. There's a million reasons why we have to release this old anger. We cannot continue to carry it around. In fact, in my own experience that I have had in the past, I am such an emotional stuffer that I stuff so much stuff down there that all it took was one very difficult year with a lot of emotional things taking place, including my own illness. And that was a year where the dam broke, and there was no, I mean, it was just everything. I had such a hard time not crying. I had such a hard time being able to deal with emergency situations or just even regular situations where normally I would take care of it. I just could not do it. And that is the result of not dealing with your inner child healing, with your past trauma healing. That is the result. Your body just says, I can't hold another thing in here anymore, and bloom, like a volcano, you just erupt and the lava keeps flowing and flowing and flowing. And hopefully you're not burning anybody around you as this process is going on, which is honestly very easy for that to happen. So with that being said, we're looking at your long-term goals. We're having issues having control over your day-to-day schedule in order to fit time in for those long-term goals. And then, of course, we have all this inner anger coming out. And I honestly see this playing out for you guys in a very specific way, because I know two types of Tauruses. I have known Tauruses that have a tendency to be very low vibe, very unambitious. You could use the word lazy there if you really wanted to. But the Tauruses that I tend to know the most of are very driven individuals. I know a lot of Taurus ladies specifically, although there are Taurus men out there that I'm sure are like this too, that are just constantly going, they're constantly working, very ambitious to move on to the next step. And basically, if you have a lot of things going on in your career and you're focused on money right now, you should put all your focus on that and not overload yourself by trying to focus on 5 other things at the same time. This is really the lesson for you Tauruses specifically, is the more you overload yourself, the more you're setting yourself up for failure, and you know you are. So let's not do that. And this challenge is coming up to say, we're going to make this even more difficult for you. So maybe this time you will get it. That is really annoying when that happens to me all the time, because I've been growing and expanding as an individual for a long time. They know where I'm at, and they will make it difficult on purpose if I have been ignoring the lesson. And that's what it all is for you guys this week. You cannot ignore this lesson anymore. You cannot find an easy way around it. You just have to learn it so that you can move on. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And if you love your horoscopes, do click the link below in the description and send me a coffee. I would so appreciate it. And we are going to go ahead and move on to Gemini. This is the last week of Mercury retrograde. Mercury goes direct on Monday. So we have a nice Mercury retrograde free week, although we are still in the shadow period. So do keep that in mind, that there may still be a few wonky things going on. With that being said, this is also the last week or the week before Gemini season, because we are kicking off next week in Gemini season as the sun moves closer and closer to Gemini, officially on the cusp right at the end of the week, 29 degrees. So you will be feeling the effects of the sun, which is awesome, especially if you're living somewhere where you haven't seen it in a while. It is definitely awesome. We also have the moon coming into Gemini this week as well, moving into conjunction with the sun, creating a new moon that is right on the cusp of Gemini and Taurus. Interestingly enough, this is, I think, the last month that this is going to happen, but every single month of 2023 prior to this, the new moons have been on the cusp of 2 signs, bringing those 2 different elements in there. And for you guys, I think this is really a good thing, because first of all, new moons to me are a time to create new goals, new plans, maybe change things up a bit, which you Geminis love to change things up. But this particular new moon brings big ideas and the energy of an earth sign to help you actually put those ideas into motion, which is always the curse of the intellectual sign. If only we could think of an idea and it just happens without us having to put any work into it. That is my perfect reality, which of course is never going to happen, right? It doesn't work that way. I've been told that numerous times by my own guides. I get it. It doesn't work that way. Having that little extra oomph there is really going to be helpful for you, actually, specifically because Taurus is a fixed sign, and that sort of brings you into this more organized way of doing things, which is totally anti-Gemini, I know. But when you organize the way that you're doing it, chances are it is going to be a little bit more successful for you. Focus continues to be on your support system, although the moon and the sun bring an element of focus on career here as well. So, couple of different things actually sort of play into this. One, um, it's sort of providing support for specific career decisions that need to be made at this time, especially if the decision is something that is difficult for you specifically to make. And in all honesty, I think that every single one of us falls in line with that at some point, especially if you're overthinking it. And if you're overthinking it, make sure you're aware that you're overthinking it so you can kind of put the brakes on that a little bit, because that's not going to help you. If anything, it slows down the process big time. We also have the sun and moon, especially towards the end of the week, really working together with other planets, in specifically in two different sextiles. We currently have a sextile going on with the sun, moon, Mars, and Neptune. Mars is still in this very weird place where it's continuing to bring old anger up that we need to deal with. And in many cases, because this is a helpful aspect for you, I feel like you guys have had your thing with Mars and your thing with Mars focused specifically on that old stuff. But I see, and because of that, I see this more as being able to identify that you did a good job the first time. So it's not going to be quite as difficult the second time around. And Neptune is focused on finances. Neptune and Pluto are also in a sextile with the sun and the moon as well. So that's two different sextiles that Neptune and money plays a part into. Pluto is focused on your day-to-day schedule. And while it's retrograde, so that kind of indicates that maybe you don't feel you have power over your schedule, it doesn't matter. Okay. The point, I think, in this sextile is the more you worry or try to micromanage your financial situation, the more difficult you're going to make it. And that, of course, is not going to help the situation. So, intellectual, yes. Does it make sense? Yes. But do leave room for energy to flow the way that it needs to flow without you having to control it, if that makes sense. And that's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do click the link below and send me a coffee. I would greatly appreciate it. And we are moving on to Cancer. We've got a lot going on in Cancer, including the almost end of Mars being in Cancer. Actually, officially, at the very end of the week, Mars moves into Leo, 0 degrees into Leo. But yes, we've had difficulties with Mars being focused on that inner closet and bringing up all this old anger. And of course, we're going to continue with those difficulties all the way up until the end, right as he's leaving, because he continues to be in a T square with Pluto and Jupiter, and in some cases Mercury, and on Wednesday the moon also adds her little 2 cents into this as well. This is a pretty big challenge, basically, with focus on your inner trauma. This affects specifically your ability to create long-term goals, your ability to follow through and be successful with these long-term goals. And Pluto in retrograde sort of makes it look like you don't have time to do this either. So this challenge is really providing you with a great excuse as to why you can't succeed in your goals, period. For Cancers, I feel like you don't need a challenge to do that. It can be very easy for any individual to provide an excuse for themselves as to why they can't move forward in their goals. But for you, Cancer specifically, I feel this is a self-protection thing. This is a fear of failure. So if I don't do it, then I won't fail and everything will be fine because it hasn't changed. The lie you're telling yourself is that everything is going to be fine. It's not. Okay. You're going to be unhappy because you didn't promote the change. And that really is something that you want to think about. You may not realize that it's going to happen, but it is going to happen. Trust me, eventually you get to a point where you look back and go, look at all that time I wasted when I could have done this and that and the other thing. You want to avoid that as much as possible. The good news is the grand sextile that Mars is currently in with the Sun as well as Neptune. This is actually a very helpful aspect, with the Sun focused on career and Neptune focused on finances. Now, if one of the things that's getting in the way of you achieving your long-term goals is money, well, then energy and things are going to open up in order to provide that money source if you choose to go after it. Now, when I say things open up and provide you this opportunity, the opportunity rarely comes to your door. It rarely just falls in your lap. You do have to keep your eyes peeled and look into it. If you are looking for work, or you are looking for a promotion or have been, this week feels like there is better energy going towards that than there has been in a while. So that is definitely helpful in a lot of ways. And I'm sorry, this is, oh no, that is. We do continue to have Venus in your sign as well. Venus is focused on your support system. So in terms of Venus and her specific support system, this is actually a very creative and very feminine support, which male or female cancers is very beneficial for both the masculine and the feminine, because it brings this sort of creative, beautiful, let's look at this not as how hard it's going to be to get there, but what a beautiful experience it's going to be as we journey there. And it changes your whole perception, and it makes things work a lot smoother. Be open to accepting this help, though, because if you're not, you can't harness the benefits of it. Mercury's trine with Saturn is also very helpful as well, because this support, it shows that this support is coming from those that are responsible for giving it to you, the ones that are closest to you, basically. And a sextile with Uranus also adds another element of that energy going specifically towards your career goals. So that is also helpful as well. So I look at this as you have a choice, and your choice is to look at your goals as an impossibility, or to find whatever you need to find to get the support you need to make your goals a reality. And most of us go straight to, I don't have any support. That's not what I am asking you to do. I am asking you to look around. There are plenty of resources and plenty of people out there that want to support you. You just have to be willing to let them help you. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And if you love your horoscopes, do send me a coffee. I would greatly appreciate it. And we're going to go ahead and move on to Leo. It's very quiet, or it has been very quiet in Leo, and that is about to end, unfortunately, as right at the end of the week. We are ending the week with Mars officially moving into Leo. Mars has been focused on inner trauma. Mars has been focused on inner trauma all year long. And as Mars is moving, that house is moving. And for most of us, this is a chance or a sign that we are holding on to too many grudges, that we are holding on to anger that we refuse to release. And it is too much, and it is time to release it. On a world scale, that can be really scary. Honestly, if everybody's releasing their anger at once, that's a possible World War III situation. is what that can sound like. But it really also depends on how you're doing that. We're not spitting it out on other people, obviously. This is not what I'm talking about. This is never what I'm talking about. We don't spit that out at other people. We do, however, oftentimes get triggered, and the understanding of where the trigger comes from and being able to work through, accept, let go, move on from those situations is definitely helpful towards the healing of all of that anger inside of you. Also, I feel that that Mars has specifically been pointing to this area of our lives a lot, because for most of us, we are emotional stuffers, and we keep stuffing it in there and stuffing it in there, and eventually you can't stuff any more in there. It turns into an emotional breakdown. It turns into a person that doesn't cry very often, is bawling all the time. It turns into an individual who's normally known for being the one that you can rely on to fix any problem, to be completely and totally helpless to fix anything. It causes a lot of things that most of the time we don't have time for. Focus is on self also. So with focus on self, we've got the dark moon also continuing to be in Leo in retrograde again. So we're talking about major changes. We're talking about bringing anger up from our toes and releasing it. That sounds like an awful lot. And just to make matters a little bit worse, Mars is in a T-square with Jupiter, Mercury, and Pluto as it comes into your sign. So he's also coming in under a pretty major challenge. Pluto's focus is on your day-to-day schedule. It's in retrograde. This can make you feel like a lot of people are rescheduling, or really put things in place to make you feel like you have no control over your schedule. Everybody else seems to have control over your schedule, which is really frustrating, especially for fixed signs. And then Jupiter and Mercury are focused on long-term goals. So in some cases, it can feel like, whatever goals you have, you don't have time for them. Obviously, you have everything else going on. You don't have time to deal with these goals. And if these are goals that you've had for a while, this is just another excuse for you to put them on the back burner until later, which never comes, right? Because we always can find a reason to put that stuff on the back burner. So part of the lesson here is not so much, is to change your perception of how you look at it, basically. If I, for example, am looking at writing a book, my mental image of that is I'm going to sit down, I'm going to start it, and then I'm going to finish it, because God forbid that I have to do anything in segments, right? Okay. That's me telling myself I don't have time to write a book because I can't sit down and write the whole dang thing at once, right? If it's 10 pages, whatever, if we're talking another Gone with the Wind, it's never getting done, right? So by giving myself that excuse, I'm shooting myself in the foot and delaying the book even coming out, or being in all the stuff. I'm just not doing it, period. And I'm putting those goals off, and eventually they're going to come back and they're going to nag me again, and we're going to go through the whole process all over again, right? So, two things I feel are really important for you guys this week. One, with the dark moon being retrograde, that has a tendency to promote refusal of change. Being that you are a fixed sign, that is not surprising at all, because fixed signs don't like change, okay? However, whether we like it or not is irrelevant. We have to be flexible. We have to change with the times. We have to change in order to grow ourselves. Otherwise, we hit a plateau, right? The other thing is, the release of this anger has a lot to do with that change. And this just adds another layer as to why this is difficult or challenging. So My advice, you don't have to sit down and release all the anger that you have accumulated over your lifetime. That's an awful lot of work, okay? But if you are triggered, you can react to the trigger, you can be angry about the trigger, you can continue to be in your I want what I want and I'm not changing or budging until I get what I want. You can do that. You have all the control, right? But that's not going to help you at all. Instead, being a little bit more flexible, being a little bit more open to change, working through the trigger, understanding, separating what's going on with this situation or this person, and understanding where it comes from the past with another person, accepting, letting that go. Those things are going to help you, even though it seems like letting go of your anger is excusing behavior. We're not talking about excusing behavior. We're talking about whether or not you're going to choose to be healthy and let that go, or you're going to choose to be unhealthy and continue to let that anger burn a hole inside of you. Hopefully that helps you make the decision. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And if you love your horoscopes, do click the link below and send me a coffee. You know how much I love my coffee. I'll greatly appreciate that. And we're going to move on to Virgo. Speaking of coffee. Moving on to Virgo, we have focus on the past, and we continue to have Ceres in that focus as well as she continues to influence your sign. Ceres is known as the Great Mother. She is all about nurturing. She is all about could be smothering, I guess, as well. Mothering and smothering, they kind of go hand in hand sometimes. In some cases, when we're talking about her focus on the past, it's kind of interesting because, of course, obviously, you can't go back and nurture something that needs nurturing, or can you? That's actually an interesting question. And in doing inner child meditations, I have worked with a lot of clients to do just that, to nurture their inner child, whether it's nurturing the inner child's pain or, grief or what have you. It is definitely possible. And the more you do that, it actually helps in leaps and bounds because it starts to remove obstacles that you created at a very young age that you didn't realize you created in the first place. And we have hundreds of those, if that makes sense. So that's one way for me to look at it. The other way that seems to be popping up for me is to nurture your perceptions of different things that have happened. So in our memories, for example, we tend to remember things. In many cases, I don't know why we do this, but we remember things in the perception that they happened, in our perception that they happened. Now, in some cases, that's seeing something and misunderstanding what it is that you're seeing. In other cases, and many times, really, this plays out as remembering the situation based on how you felt in the moment, regardless of what was going on in the situation. So, for example, you're going to look at, say, your parents getting divorced when you were a child as your whole world is falling apart. But if you also have been dealing with parents that have been screaming and fighting at each other basically your whole life, you would think to look at that as some peace and quiet finally. I can still see both of them and they're not fighting with each other all the time. That sounds like a good thing. It really depends on the individual's child's perception of how they look at that situation. And there is no right or wrong when it comes to perception. You have whatever perception you have. Nurturing that perception makes a huge difference, specifically when you're talking about certain things that took place in the past. So for instance, you went to go and apply for this job and you thought you were a shoo-in for this job, and then all of a sudden it turns out you didn't get the job, right? Now your perception, of course, is going to have irritation and frustration behind it, obviously, right? But at the same time, you could have gotten another job that was even better than that one. And just because that happened doesn't mean that your perception of what happened with the other job is going to change either. You have to go back and change it. And that's where the nurturing comes from. To go back and remind yourself, wait a minute, why am I angry about not getting this job when it actually was a blessing because it freed me up for something that's way better, right? Well, you didn't go back and change that perception before, it stayed exactly the same. And so we have to go back and nurture those perceptions every now and then. Just because that perception of I didn't get that job will hold you back from pursuing jobs 20, 30 years down the line without you even realizing it. And you don't want that ruling what you do from here on out. The whole goal is to succeed, right? Also, one last thing, Mercury retrograde ends this week. We do kick off the week with Mercury retrograde on Sunday. By Monday, it is over. We are in the shadow period now, so there still may be some Mercury retrograde wonkiness, but hopefully not quite as crazy as it was during the retrograde. Although I have seen some shadow periods be more crazy than the actual retrograde, but I don't really feel that that's going to happen with this one. So that's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do click the link below in the description of the video and send me a coffee. I would love that and appreciate it very much. And we are going to move on to Libra, where focus is on the mind and how you think, with nothing, absolutely nothing to influence that at all. Libra is an intellectual sign ruled by an emotional planet, which is Venus. By the way, you will have your emotional planet here in the next few months actually coming into your sign, which is very magical. Always love when that happens. Don't see a chance in you know what, of that happening with mine, but you guys get that chance an awful lot, which is good for you guys, but it's not happened quite yet. So we'll talk about that more when it comes. For now, focus on the mind and how you think is actually really, really important, especially as we're coming out of a Mercury retrograde, which ends on Sunday. We are full direct come Monday. Being an intellectual sign, you have the ability to overthink, obviously. I mean, everybody overthinks a little bit. I think that the intellectuals just take it a little bit farther than others, but a lot of that can be an emotional thought process as well. And this isn't overthinking in terms of worrying about how a situation is going to work out. This is overthinking in terms of over planning everything in the hopes that you don't completely screw up. And I just have to say, being a fellow intellectual, that your chances of screwing up are way worse if you are over planning, because you have so much going on in your mind that you do tend to forget the little things. I always refer to the air signs as so smart they're stupid. The reason, my reasoning behind that is that intellectuals are brilliant. They have unlimited amounts of information stored in this little computer up here. So much so that sometimes the things that we do every day become complicated all of a sudden. So if you are overusing this, it becomes less difficult to function on a day-to-day schedule. Two things about that. First of all, meditation, meditation, meditation. Meditation is awesome for helping an intellectual be able to smooth out and quiet down that brain. It gives you the ability to turn the thing off and on, because your brain doesn't rule you. You are in charge of how it works and not the other way around. And meditation is one of the ways to help with that. Intellectuals rarely ever hear silence in their minds. It is possible. I am one of them, and it took forever to figure it out. But once I got it, it was amazing, and it continues to be amazing. Okay, because it is exhausting to overthink and to be using your brain. It is actually exhausting. I literally will go a whole day like that and just be out, and like I can't even hardly put cup to my mouth to drink something because my brain is done. I call it, my brain is mush, no more, right? And I picture oatmeal in there, literally. um I have no cognitive function, right? That comes from overthinking. You have to exercise your brain, but don't over exercise your brain, because if you over exercise your brain, it gets tired, right? Which makes the rest of you tired, which basically means that if you do that too early in the day, you're not functioning anymore. And if you need to make decisions later on in the day, that isn't going to help you out. So that's one way of looking at it. The other thing that I am actually really strongly picking up for you guys this week is I really feel that this is an opportunity for you guys to make decisions without thinking about them. I know that's scary. Trust me, I know that's scary. But you're Libras. This isn't just about what makes sense. This is about what feels right. You're led by the heart. Every single one of you is led by the heart as well. When you let your mind and your heart work together, you don't need to think about it. You know, it's the minute the decision is presented, you know what decision you need to make right away. Make the decision without overthinking it. And what you're actually doing is you're allowing the universe to help guide you, and you're not controlling the situation, which is really important also. So that's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, please do send me a coffee. Click the link below in the description. I would really, really appreciate that. And we are going to move on to Scorpio. Focus continues to be on the home this week with nothing else to influence that, which is pretty good, because honestly, it's kind of a mess right now everywhere but where you are. So that's good. No moon, no nothing this week. That's really good. In terms of focus on the home, very interesting that I was just just talking with a client who's on the cusp of Libra and Scorpio, saying that she was working so much that she didn't even have time to clean her house. She didn't have time for her home. Making time. I really feel that this week is about making time. Not just to clean your house, obviously. I mean, that's a thing, that really you should do. Otherwise, it gets gross. I get it. But this isn't about making time specifically to take care of chores. This is about making time to enjoy the environment that you're creating, even if you haven't completed the creation of it yet. And I don't think we any of us ever finished creating that creation, but what's the point of that creation if you have no time to enjoy it? And I feel like this isn't just about I've worked too much. I think that in many cases, there's always those social things that are going on. There's always this that could happen. You could pick up another shift over here. So and so needs help over here. You don't have time to spend enjoying your environment, to spend time enjoying what you've created at home, and to have that relaxation space. I mean, you created it, you just haven't had time to get to it. So I feel like making time this week is really important, not just for your own appreciation of what you've created, obviously, but for your own health as well. We need time to unplug from everybody else. We need time to be quiet in our minds and meditate and relax. We need time for ourselves. And a lot of people have a hard time saying no when they have that little bit of time, and they get very easily talked into what somebody else needs them to do. This same client, she's gonna know when who she is when she listens to this. I said to her that I learned this word that was really hard to use at first, but then it got much easier. Now it's way too easy, and the word is no. No, I can't do that right now. No, I'm sorry, I'm not available. Even if you plan on staying home and relaxing and doing nothing, that still means you're unavailable. Why is it that we human beings seem to think that rest time is not important? Like we're doing something bad if we're just staying home and resting. We're not doing anything bad. In fact, trust me, I'd like to do that more often. Honestly, I enjoy that time now. It's much easier. The more you use the word no, it becomes a lot easier to use, right? Not to say that I, will shut everybody out with it, but you have to have balance. And I feel like this week is what it's all about. You will start to feel it physically when things are out of balance. When your work and rest, or your work, rest, and play is out of balance, your body starts to feel the effects of that. And to me, when I start feeling sick, that means I need to rest. And if I don't rest, I will get full on sick every single time. And you don't want that. So that's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do send me a coffee. Click the link below in the description and send me a coffee. You know I love my coffee. And I'll appreciate that. Moving on to Sagittarius, focus continues to be on those you love, with nothing to influence that whatsoever. And I kind of look at this as a double-edged sword, for lack of a better way of saying this. On one hand, this is a really good time to enjoy those that you love. I think that a lot of times we find it difficult to enjoy the people that we love. I enjoy my kids, but they get on my nerves. I mean, they're people just like other people, and not in the right mindset. It's getting on my nerves, right? Or not in the right context is getting on my nerves. Or it's not so much that they're getting on your nerves, you just don't have time for them at all. We all get stuck. They don't have time for you. You don't have time for them. This is an opportunity for that time to kind of sort of open up a little bit, to be able to spend that time with the people that you love. Really is what it's all about, in my opinion. And I love, as much as I love everybody, yes, everybody gets on my nerves from time to time. Come on, I'm a human being just like everybody else, right? But the times that I enjoy the most are the times when I can just be me and my family, and here we are just kicking it. We're not doing anything. We don't have to plan this giant thing to do. We're just there with each other, enjoying each other's company. It makes all the difference in the world. Or those instances where I get that opportunity to go and see somebody that I haven't really had time for, that I miss a whole lot. That is also something that could be playing out in this as well. But I also, the other end of that sword is the possibility that it is necessary for you to be there for those that you love more than you normally are. And there's a million different reasons why this would happen. Everybody needs support from time to time. And I feel like you guys, you Sagittarians specifically, you have such a beautiful energy. You have to share it. Obviously, you have to share it in these instances, because it's so needed depending on the context. The last thing that I really feel is coming up around you guys is looking at the amount of time that you put into those that you love and making sure there's a balance between what you're giving to yourself versus what you're giving to everybody else. It is important to remember that balance and to remember that you are a priority, and that especially if you have children, regardless of how old they are, you are teaching them. By taking care of you, you're teaching them how to take care of themselves, or how they should be taken care of. So you also want to make sure that you are displaying the right lesson. To be honest with you, I did not do that. I didn't. I grew up and raised my children in the mom sacrifices her entire being for those that she loves, because that's what all the women before me have done, right? And I have since changed that. Of course, it's never too late to make that change. It's never too late to learn that lesson, and in many cases your children need to see that as well. So don't feel bad when you need to put yourself first from time to time as well. So that's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do click the link below in the description and send me a coffee. I would greatly appreciate it. We're going to move on to Capricorn, focuses on your day-to-day schedule. We continue to have Pluto retrograde in 0 degrees Aquarius, which means it is still on the cusp of Capricorn. Pluto is in a T-square with Jupiter, with Mercury, with Mars, and on Wednesday, the moon moves into conjunction with Mercury and Jupiter. So the moon sort of adds her 2 cents into this fiasco as well. Gotta have an emotional 2 cents somewhere, right? With focus on your day-to-day schedule, Capricorns are they like to know what they're doing that day when they're doing it. They like to have some sort of control over their schedule. Changes are okay as long as they make sense. Once it starts to get to be irresponsible, don't like to deal with that. Kind of sort of throw that one out the window and move on to something else, kind of a thing. Jupiter and Mercury are focused on long-term goals. Mars continues to be pulling old anger out from past experiences. So still continuing to focus on that past trauma. There's a couple of different things I feel that are playing out in this. First of all, if these are personal goals and the expansion of these personal goals, it may feel like you don't have the time to do this. Now, you always have time. Everybody has time. Even Capricorns have time. You don't have to implement the whole process right this second. You can do a little bit at a time and work on it until you get to the finish line of your ultimate goals, if that makes sense. I just started yawning for the first time in the video, so maybe you feel a little overwhelmed and tired, and that may be why you just don't have time, which is okay. If you are not implementing self-care into your regime by now, you should be. And Mars's influence in the past could have a lot to do with that lesson, as well as you find yourself. One of the things about Capricorns that I have noticed is that they almost every single one of them tends to throw themselves on the coals for the people that they love, and they get really offended when those people don't do the same for them. And there's usually a reason why they don't either, because they don't realize that they're supposed to reciprocate that. They don't realize that that's what you're expecting. 9 times out of 10, you haven't told them, first of all, that that's what they're supposed to expect. The other thing is, it gets exhausting after a while. And while you feel it may be your duty to do so, nobody asked you to do that. And if they are asking you to do that, then shame on them for asking you to do that. That's absolutely preposterous, right? If they're not going to do that for you, why would you do it for them? Period. So I feel like this this challenge is sort of coming up and saying you got to get rid of the excuse of I don't have time for this, even if that means eliminating problems outside of it and reminding yourself how you're supposed to take care of you before you take care of your job, your family members, your animals. I mean, who's going to take care of all this if you keel over and die because you didn't take care of yourself? You really have to look at it in that way. It seems drastic, but it is the truth, honestly. I mean, just because you haven't seen somebody keel over and die because of the lack of self-care does not mean that it hasn't happened in some way, shape, or form. Some people are more drastic about that than others, but it's still, the result is still the same. You have to take care of you, and you have to take care of your responsibilities, and everybody else's come second. So, another yawn. It's okay to take a nap also if you need one. I have a hard time with that myself. I get it, but it's okay to take a nap every now and then if you need one. And that's what I have for you guys. If you love your horoscopes, do click the link below in the description and send me a copy. You know, I would really appreciate that. And I'm going to move on to Aquarius. We continue to have Pluto in a T-square with Mars and Jupiter and Mercury. And Wednesday, the moon moves into conjunction with Jupiter and Mercury to add her 2 cents into this great big giant challenge too. Her emotional 2 cents, which being Aquarians, we really don't want to hear, right? Really don't want to hear that. You get an emotional problem, not my problem. I don't want to hear it. No sniveling, right? No sniveling. Do what you got to do over there, away from me, right? That's kind of how that works in many ways. Maybe not the best, depending on what the situation is, but you know, nobody's perfect, right? Not even an Aquarius is perfect. Focus is on your day-to-day schedule. For a fixed sign like Aquarius, I know me personally, I like to have my schedule laid out. I do not like changes. Obviously, I've had to learn repeatedly over the last several years that you got to be flexible, because if you're not flexible, you're going to be frustrated all the time. All the time. Emphasis on all the time, right? Flexibility is not easy for a fixed sign. It's not impossible either. So keep that in mind. Mars continues to be bringing up old anger from various different past experiences and bringing it up to the surface in order to help you decide, make the decision to let that anger go so it's not controlling you anymore. Again, not a fun process, not something that somebody wants to go through on a regular basis, but in my own personal experience, it makes a huge difference. Okay, healing emotional trauma from the past, from what happened before, allows you freedom. It changes the choices that you made. It eliminates some of the fear, or if not eliminate the fear, you make a different choice on how you deal with the fear. It means everything. Successful people, I'm sure, do this. I'm sure of it. They also don't let that stuff hold them back from what they mean to do currently right now. So with that being said, the question comes down to, do you or do you not want to be successful? You have to be flexible in order to be successful, specifically around your long-term goals. Now, in my experience also, it's very easy to come up with a million excuses as to why you can't do something. It is not easy to look past all of those excuses and do it anyways. That takes a little bit more work. It takes more self-control. It takes motivating yourself. I can't tell you how many times I've said I'm not motivated to do anything, so I'm not going to do it. And then I found out that every single day was like that. I was never motivated to do anything. I had to motivate myself to get up and get moving and get going and do it. And yes, I have my days where my energy is so low. I don't want to crawl through it, so I don't, right? And as long as I take the time to rest that day, then I am usually a-okay the next day to be able to do what it is that I was supposed to do yesterday, but my energy level was just too low for that. So in terms of expansion around your long-term goals, this is actually coming up just to remind you, you need to be flexible. Yes, not in there isn't a single person on the planet that has complete control over their schedule. There's always something that comes up where you have to rearrange things. I get that. And when you are looking at fear, specifically fear that's triggering an old fear that had an anger response, work through the trigger. I can't tell you how beneficial that is. I really can't. It's better for you to understand it yourself when you go through the process. It will make more of a difference if you do it yourself versus me telling you how it's going to work. But for me personally, what I can say is there's a lot less holding me back than there used to be. And that is because I work through my triggers when they happen rather than reacting to them or lashing out because of them, because that is never helpful. So that's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do click the link below in the description and send me a coffee, because you know I be needing that coffee. And I will really appreciate it, of course. And finally, we are at Pisces. We continue to have Neptune 27 degrees. So it looks like Neptune is leaving. I don't think it is, though. But it looks like Neptune is about to leave. And then we continue also to have Saturn, which is a 2-year experience. So you've got plenty of time to go with Saturn. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is kind of irrelevant, isn't it? It just is what it is. Saturn is focused on your responsibility to your relationships, moving into a trine with Venus, which is focused on your support system. And this is actually one of those brilliant opportunities where those that you have supported are there to support you. And there's always those instances where you really need that. I feel like this week, if that comes up, it's not going to be an issue. I don't feel like you're going to be in the situation where you're just searching for somebody to support you and they're just not there. You have a massive support system. I think every Pisces does, because you are very social people, and very loving and accepting people as well. So, finding the support that you need probably not going to be a difficulty for you this week at all. Neptune's focus is on finances, and Neptune is in 2 different grand sextiles to help with those financial situations. Specifically in a sextile, grand sextile with Pluto as well as the Sun. The Sun is focused on career. Pluto is influencing your day-to-day schedule, but I feel like while you may feel you have specific days off scheduled, I also see opportunity to make money on those days. So you may need to change things around or change those more social plans around, because that money is available and you definitely want a little bit of a piece of it. We also have Neptune in a grand sextile with the Sun and Mars. Mars is still sitting in this place where Mars is bringing up old anger from our old trauma spaces, which is kind of interesting that that would be helpful, but it really is. If you have any situations around money that are negative, it absolutely affects your ability to make money now. And I have a perfect example of that. I never in a million years thought that childhood experiences would influence your money mindset at all until somebody brought that to my attention. And I fought it at first because I said, there's no way money doesn't really play a part in our lives as children. Well, it does. Either you have money, your parents have money, and you're getting spoiled rotten with stuff. Obviously that's going to create a mindset that money is always there, right? Whereas a personal experience of mine as a child is I actually started my first business at 13 years old, very successful in a very short amount of time, had several different clients. And my stepfather at the time decided that I wasn't doing my chores because I was too busy working. So the punishment was, I'm going to hold on to your money until you do a better job, which I never did. And I don't think that no matter what I did, I was going to actually ever do a good enough job for him. And he walked away with hundreds of dollars of my hard-earned money because of it. So I developed a mindset at a very early age that it doesn't matter how much money I get, somebody's always going to be there to take it. And what does it look like as an adult? You make money, and the minute that money comes in, you're handing it to everybody else. You're paying your mortgage, you're paying your rent, you're paying your bills, your utility bills, you're buying food. My gas tank takes a lot of my money, right? It mimics the same thing. And that takes away motivation to get more money because, well, if you're getting more money, you're just going to hand more money to everybody else, right? Just highly possible. You never know. The point is that that makes getting that money that much more difficult. And then your mindset starts to slip. And then before long, your mindset is, this is just too hard. So I'm not going to put the effort into it. And that's not going to help you either. So there's a lot of energy going towards making some significant money this week for you guys, or coming up with ideas to be able to do that very soon, which is also good. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And if you love your horoscopes, do click the link below in the description and send me a copy. I would greatly appreciate that. And that is what I have for everybody this week. Thanks so much for hanging out and checking out the horoscopes. Go to my website, www.heavymetalpsychic.com. I got a calendar going on there. We've got a membership here going on here. All kinds of exciting stuff, and there's new stuff being added all the time. So go check that out so that you are in the loop all the time. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Make it a great week, everybody.